Welcome to Singapore Property Talk Law. Ready for a deep dive? Today we're looking into the latest in the CDL saga, the one that's been shaking up Singapore's property scene. And I've got Serene here with me. She's our expert on all things CDL, so we can really unpack it.
Hi, everyone.
Now, just in case you haven't been glued to this whole thing, CDL, City Developments Limited. I mean, they're one of Singapore's biggest property developers, but lately they've been in the news for a different reason. A family feud right at the top. We're talking about Kwek Leng Beng, the executive chairman, going head-to-head with his son, Sherman Kwek, the CEO, and yeah, it's sent shockwaves through the market.
It really has. I mean, just imagine a company where the leadership is publicly fighting like that. It's not exactly a vote of confidence for investors.
Exactly. So let's rewind a bit. Can you remind us, Serene, what were the initial accusations that kicked all this off?
Well, Kwek Leng Beng, the father, he accused his son Sherman of basically trying to pull a boardroom takeover, saying Sherman appointed new directors in a way that wasn't exactly by the book and that it all went against good corporate governance.
And that's a pretty serious accusation coming from your own father.
Yeah.
So what did Sherman say to all this?
Sherman denied any kind of coup attempt and pointed the finger instead at Catherine Wu. She was an advisor to CDL's hotel arm, Millennium and Copthorne Hotels, M&C. He said she was the real problem behind all this, wielding too much influence over his father and CDL's operations.
So we've got accusations flying around, a family divided, and this Catherine Wu figure emerging in the middle. It sounds like a TV show.
Totally. And it gets even more dramatic because then Catherine Wu resigns out of the blue as an unpaid advisor to M&C.
Oh, wow. So we have this resignation coming out of nowhere. What was the impact of that? Was this the turning point that everyone was waiting for?
It was a big deal, for sure. Kwek Leng Beng saw her resigning as a key step to getting investors to trust CDL again. All this public fighting was making people nervous about investing.
Yeah, investor confidence is so important, especially when it comes to property. But this isn't your average boardroom disagreement, is it? I mean, this is a family business, which adds a whole other layer.
Absolutely. When you've got personal relationships tied up with business decisions, well, it can make things a lot harder to sort out.
It's like trying to untangle a huge knot with each strand representing a different family member and their part in the company. But then, just when things seem super tense, we get another plot twist. Kwek Leng Beng dropped the lawsuit against his son and those other directors.
Yeah, a lot of people were surprised by that move. Suddenly the legal battle's over and the family's saying they're putting their differences aside, at least publicly, for the good of CDL and its stakeholders.
So on the surface, it looks like a happy ending. The family's back together, no more lawsuit. Everyone can go back to business as usual. But is it really that simple? Can everyone just forget about everything that happened?
That's the big question, isn't it? This truce might calm things down for now, but there are still unanswered questions and things to think about for the long term.
And that's what we're going to look at next. Stay tuned as we explore the impact of this resolution, the corporate governance concerns it brought up, and what it all means for CDL's future. This is Singapore Property Talk Law, and we'll be right back after a quick. Just kidding. We're diving right in. Okay, Serene, let's talk about the big thing everyone's thinking, about CDL's share price. It took a hit when this family feud went public, right?
Yeah, it did. When the feud became public knowledge, CDL's share price went down from $5.12 to $4.94. Now that they've called a truce, the question is, will that be enough to get investors back on board and push the price up again? Analysts are watching this very closely.
Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about the Kwek family, is it? There are tons of investors who rely on CDL doing well. What does this whole saga say to them?
Exactly. This whole thing has brought up some serious worries about corporate governance at CDL.
For those of us who aren't financial experts, can you explain what those concerns are? What does the situation tell us about how CDL is being run?
Well, think about the accusations we talked about earlier, the potential coup, the irregular board appointments, the rumors about undue influence. All that raises red flags about things maybe not being so stable or transparent at the top.
And for investors, transparency and stability are super important, right?
Oh, absolutely. Investors need to feel confident that the company they're putting money into is being managed responsibly and ethically. Things like this can make people doubt that.
It seems like this whole CDL saga is a warning, especially for other family-run businesses out there. What lessons can they learn from this very public and messy situation?
It's a great point. The CDL situation shows how important it is to have clear succession planning and strong corporate governance in family businesses. Having those things in place can stop conflicts from getting out of control and turning into public fights that damage the company's image and end up hurting shareholders.
It seems like being prepared is key. What specific measures could companies take to avoid a situation like this?
Think about things like checks and balances, clear communication, and making sure there are independent voices on the board. Those are all really important to make sure decisions are made for the good of the company and its shareholders, not just to benefit individual family members.
So with this truce happening, what are analysts saying about the future of CDL? Are they optimistic, or is there still a sense of caution?
It's kind of a mix, to be honest. Some analysts are cautiously optimistic. They think this resolution will let CDL focus on its main business again and work on improving shareholder value. They're hoping this means the board will be more collaborative and transparent going forward.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
A company can't do well if it's always fighting internally. But I bet not everyone is so optimistic.
Right. There are others who are more skeptical. They're worried that the damage is already done, that this public fight has created a lack of trust that will be hard to fix. Their concern is whether the board can really function well and make good decisions for the company after such a public display of disagreement.
So it seems like CDL's future is still kind of uncertain. What should our listeners be watching for as this story develops? What are the key signs that CDL is getting back on track or that they're still struggling to move past this?
I think it'll be interesting to see how CDL's business decisions are affected by all this. Will we see a change in their investment strategies? Will they become more careful or maybe go all in on certain projects to look strong and stable? Will they do something concrete to improve their corporate governance? These are all questions that we'll find out the answers to over time, and watching what they do will give us some insight into the lasting impact of this feud.
We've been deep diving into this CDL family feud here on Singapore Property Talk Law, and it's been quite a ride from public accusations and that shock resignation to this sudden truce and, all the questions about what happens next. It's had more twists and turns than, I don't know, a property developer sales pitch.
It really has kept us all guessing. And like we've been talking about, the effects go way beyond just the Kwek family. This whole thing has brought up some big concerns about corporate governance at CDL, and it's definitely had an impact on investor confidence, something that affects the whole Singapore property market.
It really shows how even with these huge companies, personal relationships and family stuff can play a big role and sometimes not in a good way. So, Serene, as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the main thing you want our listeners to take away from all this?
I think the CDL situation really highlights how important transparency and good corporate governance are for any company, especially family-run ones. Having clear communication, a solid plan for who takes over, and a board that can make decisions independently are crucial to making sure the company's interests come first.
That's some great advice, Serene. You've given our listeners a lot to think about. And remember, this story isn't over yet. How CDL moves forward from here, the choices they make, and the steps they take to rebuild trust will be really important for their success in the long run.
Exactly. The next chapter for CDL is still being written. It'll be interesting to see how this whole experience shapes their business decisions going forward and if they can use it to come back even stronger.
It's a fascinating case study that we'll definitely keep an eye on here at Singapore Property Talk Law. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and until next time, stay informed and happy investing.